Stop scrolling. Seriously. If you or someone you love receives SSI, SSDI, or has been waiting on a stimulus payment, you need to hear what I'm about to tell you right now. Because something major just happened in Washington, and most people who are directly affected by this won't even know about it until the money either shows up in their account or doesn't. And you need to understand the difference. So stay with me for the next few minutes, because I'm going to break this down in plain English, step by step. No confusing legal jargon, no political noise. Just the facts that matter to you and your family. Let's start from the beginning, because context matters here. For years, millions of Americans who rely on Social Security income, that's SSI, and Social Security Disability Insurance, that's SSDI, have been navigating a system that, frankly, has not kept up with real life. The cost of groceries is higher, rent is higher, prescription medication is higher. And for a long time, the payments people were receiving just weren't reflecting that reality. There have been cost of living adjustments, yes, and we've talked about those before, but what Congress just passed goes beyond a standard adjustment. This is new legislation, a new law. And it changes some things in a meaningful way for people who are already living close to the edge. Now, I want to be upfront with you. Stay with me here, because this is where a lot of news sources either overcomplicate things or undercomplicate them, and neither one helps you. What I'm going to do is walk you through exactly what changed, who it affects, when payments are going out, what the dollar amounts look like, and most importantly, what you need to do or not do to make sure you get every dollar you're entitled to. So let's talk about what Congress actually passed. The new legislation, and I'll explain this in plain English, is a package that does a few key things at once. First, it authorizes a one-time supplemental payment for people already receiving SSI and SSDI. Think of this like a bonus round. It's not a replacement for your regular monthly benefit. It's on top of it. Second, the law also adjusts the income and asset thresholds for SSI recipients, which is huge, and I'll explain why in a moment. And third, there are provisions in this law that relate to a broader economic relief effort, which is why you're hearing the phrase stimulus checks alongside SSI and SSDI. Now, these aren't identical payments. They come through different channels and have different eligibility rules. Let me break each one down. Let's start with SSI. Supplemental security income is designed for people who are aged, blind, or disabled, and who have very limited income and resources. And here's what a lot of people don't realize. SSI has had some of the strictest asset limits in the entire federal benefit system. We're talking about limits that haven't meaningfully changed in decades. Under the old rules, a single person on SSI could not have more than $2,000 in countable assets. A couple could have no more than $3,000. Now, think about that for a second. $2,000 in 2026. That's not even enough for an emergency car repair or a medical bill copay. And the cruel irony of those limits is that they essentially punished people for trying to save money. If you set aside a little each month for emergencies, you risked losing your benefits entirely. It was a trap. The new law changes that. The asset limits are being raised significantly. And more importantly, certain types of savings and accounts are going to be treated differently, giving people on SSI more breathing room to actually build a small financial cushion without the fear of disqualification. I'll explain the exact numbers in a moment, but first I want you to understand why this matters emotionally, not just financially. If you've been on SSI, you know the stress I'm describing. You know what it feels like to have to spend down your savings before the end of the month just to stay eligible. That is a form of financial trauma. And this law, at least in part, is an acknowledgement that the system needed to change. Now let's talk about SSDI, Social Security Disability Insurance. This is different from SSI. SSDI is for people who have worked, paid into Social Security, and then became disabled and can no longer work. Your benefit amount under SSDI is based on your work history and your earnings record. What the new law does for SSDI recipients is tied to the supplemental payment I mentioned earlier. If you are currently receiving SSDI, you are eligible for a one-time payment under this new legislation. The exact amount varies depending on your situation, but we're going to talk numbers in just a moment. Let's take a step back first and make sure everyone understands the landscape. There are roughly 8 million people in the United States currently receiving SSI. There are around 9 million receiving SSDI. And then there is a third group, people who may be eligible for what the law describes as economic relief payments, which is the stimulus component. These are targeted to lower-income Americans who meet certain thresholds, and they overlap significantly with the SSI and SSDI population, but they're not exactly the same group. So if you've been hearing stimulus checks and wondering if that applies to you on top of SSI or SSDI, the answer is, it depends on your specific situation, and I'm going to tell you how to find out. Let's get into the actual numbers, because that's what you came here for. For SSI recipients, the supplemental payment is expected to range between $250 and $450, depending on whether you are an individual or part of a couple receiving SSI. This is a one-time payment, not a monthly increase. At least, not yet. For SSDI recipients, the supplemental payment is calculated slightly differently, but most recipients can expect a payment in a similar range. The Social Security Administration is processing these in batches, which means not everyone gets it on the same day. If your regular payment comes via direct deposit on the second, third, or fourth Wednesday of the month, your supplemental payment will follow that same schedule. But it may arrive as a separate deposit, not bundled with your regular check. This is important. Do not panic if you see two separate deposits or if one arrives a day or two after the other. That is normal. Now let's talk about the stimulus side of this law, because this part has caused a lot of confusion online, and I want to clear it up. The economic relief payments, what people are calling the new stimulus checks, are not automatically distributed to everyone. There is a process. If you filed taxes recently and your income falls below a certain threshold, you may receive this automatically. If you haven't filed taxes and you rely solely on SSI or SSDI as your income source, you will need to go through the non-filer portal on the IRS website or contact your local Social Security office to confirm your eligibility and your payment method. This is the step most people miss. They hear stimulus check and they wait, and they wait. And then they find out they needed to take an action and they missed the window. Please don't let that be you. This part is important. If you receive SSI and you have a representative payee, meaning someone else manages your benefits on your behalf, they will receive the payment on your account, just like your regular monthly benefit. If you believe your representative payee is not giving you access to funds you're entitled to, that is something you can report to the Social Security Administration. You have rights. I'll explain how to do that at the end of this video. Let's talk about the asset limit change in more detail, because this one is genuinely a big deal, and it's not getting enough attention. Under the new law, the individual asset limit for SSI is being raised to $10,000. For couples, it goes up to $20,000. Now, some assets are still excluded from that count: your primary home, your primary vehicle, and certain retirement accounts. But the baseline limit itself nearly quintuples for individuals. This means if you've been doing financial gymnastics to stay under $2,000 in your bank account, you now have significantly more room to breathe. You can actually start saving without the threat of losing your benefits hanging over your head. Real-world example. Maria, who is 58 years old and on SSI, has been terrified to put money aside for a new wheelchair because every time her account went over $2,000, she had to spend it down. Under the new law, she can save for that wheelchair, keep an emergency fund, and still maintain her eligibility. That is what this change means in real human terms. Now, here is what I really need you to hear. And this applies whether you're on SSI, SSDI, or waiting on a stimulus payment. Scammers are already active. They always are when there's news like this. You will likely see messages on Facebook, on text, maybe even through email, claiming they can help you get your payment faster, or that you need to verify your information by clicking a link, or that you need to pay a small fee to unlock your check. None of that is real. The Social Security Administration and the IRS do not ask for fees to release payments. They do not ask you to verify your Social Security number through a text message. They do not call you and demand action immediately. If someone contacts you claiming to be from SSA or the IRS and asks for any kind of payment or personal verification over the phone, hang up. Then call the official SSA number, which is 1-800-772-1213, or go directly to ssa.gov or irs.gov. Type those addresses yourself. Do not click links. Here's what to do right now. Step 1. Log in to your My Social Security account at ssa.gov and confirm your direct deposit information is current. If your bank account changed recently and you haven't updated it, your payment could go to the wrong place. Step 2. If you haven't set up a My Social Security account, do it today. It takes about 10 minutes and it gives you visibility into your benefits, your payment history, and any notices the SSA sends you. Step 3. If you are not receiving SSI or SSDI, but you think you might qualify for the economic relief payment, visit irs.gov and look for the Get My Payment tool or the Non-Filer portal. Step 4. If you have a question about whether the new asset limit changes affect your current SSI eligibility, call your local Social Security office or 1-800-772-1213. They can review your case and tell you exactly where you stand. Now let's look ahead, because this law doesn't just affect what's happening right now. Here's what a lot of people don't realize. Some of the provisions in this legislation set the stage for further changes in 2026 and beyond. There are scheduled reviews built into the law that will examine whether the supplemental payment structure should become permanent. There are also provisions that direct the SSA to study the feasibility of monthly benefit increases tied to a different inflation index, one that more accurately reflects the spending patterns of elderly and disabled Americans, rather than the general population. That matters because right now, the COLA, the cost of living adjustment, is calculated using a measure that doesn't fully capture how much more seniors and people with disabilities spend on healthcare and housing compared to the average American. If the study leads to a policy change, it could mean higher monthly benefits going forward. That's not guaranteed yet, but it's in motion. What I want you to take away from all of this is simple. Real change happened. Real money is moving. And the window to make sure you're positioned to receive everything you're entitled to is open right now. But it won't stay open forever. Payment windows close. Non-filer deadlines pass. Direct deposit errors go unfixed if nobody catches them. So be proactive. Check your account. Verify your information. Share this video with someone you know who is on SSI or SSDI. Because there is a very real chance they haven't heard any of this yet, and you could be the person who makes sure they don't miss out. Don't leave money on the table. Stay informed. Check your account. And if someone in your life is older, disabled, or just trying to navigate this system on their own, share this with them. Because the people who need this information the most are often the last ones to find it.